couple things here. So the
countless times throughout my nearly 40 years in this business, no matter how big a band is, there's nothing they love more than seeing young, hot, hip, pop, or artists from different genres bending the knee to them and talking about how much they love them. Older bands love the hell out of that because it makes them feel current and contemporary and hip and cool and more relevant. I told this story before. The very first Kissology that came out, I hosted a 1-hour special with Gene and Paul at Henson Studios in LA for the release of that back around 2006. And they were at that time, they were fine with me doing the interview, but they were adamant that somebody else that was of the time, like who would be viewed as like a cool, hip rock or pop artist that was a fan, co-hosted the interview with me, because that gave it that look at, this guy being a fan of us vibe, which all of these bands love. And the guy they picked to do it was Scott Weiland. So the interview, and this thing aired, the interview was supposed to be Scott Weiland and I interviewing Kiss for Kissology. They wanted me there because they knew I knew the band inside out, but they wanted a celebrity type person there to bend the knee, basically. And that's the person that they agreed on was Scott. And guess who didn't show up the day we shot? Scott Weiland. So he Scott, we all know he had major problems, the guy, but he pulled a no-show. And that's why that interview ended up airing with just me talking to those guys. But there was another chair there that was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to give it this cred. So my point is, all of these artists love that stuff, and I'm sure that her doing a Metallica song would be a cool thing to them. What else did you want to say, Penu?
Probably love it. No, just quickly, maybe sometime later you could do this, but wondering if you're able to break down kind of the concert ticket revenues in terms of, if I buy a $100 ticket to see an arena band, how much goes into the artist's pocket? And the main reason I'm saying this or asking about is I think a lot of us are kind of under the misconception that these bands that maybe play a hockey arena to 10,000 people are making way more money than they actually are, with the papering and all that. So I wonder or maybe if you have like an industry friend who can come and explain that's kind of how much are the bands actually making and how many bands are making those millions and millions that we assume they are.
Well, I actually have, and thank you, Penu, for the call. I actually have that friend, and he was on the show last week. So listen on the app if you missed it, but I had a concert promoter on last week who's an old friend of mine named Danny Zalisco, who's been promoting concerts for 40 years, still does, and he released a book, and that was the reason for him coming on. I think it was last Thursday's show. Now, I ran out of time to get into specifics like that, but he would be a guy who is a promoter who could ask on that, because he's produced and promoted shows at every level, from stadiums to clubs. And, the one thing he says in his book that I brought up during that interview last week is when you and fans wonder about the price of a concert ticket, which we all know some of them have gotten ridiculously priced and overpriced, which probably is going to have to get in check a little bit when shows come back. But he says in his book, let's cut to it right now and say something and make this abundantly clear. Ticket prices are always dictated by the artist. So although the artist likes to, according to Danny's book, not according to Danny's book. Danny's book said that prices are 100% dictated by the artist. But we all know to deflect that, a lot of times artists will make it like, well, it's the promoter, or no. They may not directly say, I want that ticket to be $250, but because of the money they're demanding as a guarantee, the only way to make the show happen is to charge the tiered ticketing. So if their guarantee is so high, that's going to only get reflected to you. And if they're carrying a ton of production and staff and a huge stage show, well, that's going to be trickled down to you as well. So that's what he meant by saying the prices. And then we all know there's these ridiculous fees and all that, but the price comes down to the fact of how much that artist wants to perform and what they're commanding to do a date. Here's Jim in Long Island. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Eddie, what's up?
Hey, man.
Listen, I tried to call you last week because, as we know, very sad day today. Today is the 40th anniversary of John Lennon's death. I tried to call you if you can do a top John Lennon songs, but that's the reason why I called. I got a couple of docs that you may like to watch, and I want to talk about Rolling Stone magazine.
Well, I have about a minute and a half before I got to hit a break, Jim, so go ahead.
Okay, the docs were John Belushi.
Saw it.
You saw it. Very good. Murder on Middle Beach.
Saw that too. Although I didn't watch the last one yet.
Okay, and Rolling Stone magazine had the 100 albums, top albums. What were your thoughts about it? I thought it was a travesty.
When did that come out? When was that? When did that hit, Jim? Was that recent?
A month or two.
You know, it was the top, 100 albums of all time?
Yeah.
I got to see if I can find that online. I didn't see that one.
Yeah. And one more thing about Journey. Since Ross Avery and Steve Smith are fired, I think they should get together. Maybe Ross Avery, if can get Steve Smith on board, get Austin Dunbar, and maybe Steve Perry can join.
Jim, I think it's a nice idea, Jim. I got to go. First of all, you're talking about Ross Valerie and Ainsley Dunbar. Those are the people you're talking about. Yeah, the name's a little screwed up there, but I think that's a nice idea. That's a whole nother conversation, is bands that there's more former members than current, and they can put together their own band. That would have more original members than the band currently using the name. That's a whole nother conversation. And yes, 40 years ago, losing, obviously, the icon John Lennon. To do a John Lennon top 20, I'm just being brutally honest. There's not a person on the planet that doesn't respect John Lennon. But for my audience, I just don't see it being a major thing, skewing much more hard rock. But
jab, this one, you got up half a jab, and then the full shows in 3 weeks later, 21 days later. That's how this one is working. So there's hope yet. Let's go good.
Yeah, well, look, it's an encouraging sign. I mean, I know it's going to be a long process around the world for this to be rolled out, but to hear there are parts of the world where they're starting it, I think everybody could use a little optimism at this point. How have you done? I mean, we're going to talk about your record, but how have you done during this whole lockdown? You're a guy obviously very used to spending much of your life on the road.
The cigarettes will be coming out of the packet.
Through the military that took some crazy turns and really, really fascinating, although it had nothing to do with music, so I won't get too elaborately into it. There are, here's what I did though last night. While I was watching this documentary, and I'll tell you, I gotta love this guy for this, whether I agree with him or disagree with him. And we've had agreements and disagreements over the more than 30 years that we've known each other. But Sebastian Bach last night unleashed a text assault on me. He lives in LA, so it was probably, 7 o'clock his time. Around 10 o'clock, the text started coming in. And the long and short of it is he's trying to talk me into going to see Kiss on their current tour. Because he knows me as being such a huge, huge Kiss fan, which I am for a huge part of their history. Just not the recent history. So he went to see him, and he's trying to, I'm not going to get into all the nuts and bolts of it, but he had a great line, something like, dude, you got one last chance to rock and roll all night and party every day. Who cares, man? Just go to the show. It's like the circus.